Maybe we should start with that Times news story that the removal of Sue Gray will not, in of itself, solve the systemic issues in Number 10. So if Sue Gray was not the problem, what are the systemic issues in Number 10?
And who's the problem?
What's got to be done?
Well, the book stops at the top.
Quite.
I mean, let's be honest. I'll apply the same thinking I would if it had been the Conservatives to Labour. And the Prime Minister has to take responsibility. You can have deputies' heads can roll, but you've got to take responsibility of yourself. You've got to have a purpose.
What's the issue, though? What's the problem with Keir Starmer, then? If it's not Sue Gray's the problem, how do you diagnose what's gone wrong?
All right, one is, what does he want to do? He talks about 5 missions. How do they really actually impact on people's lives? And then 2, have you got the people in place to make that happen? And then thirdly, you've got to behave well. And the problem is he's got a back catalogue of unwise decisions on the free suits and the spectacles. And I think the scale of the tickets, not all of them, but the scale of them. Now, the Conservatives, when they were in power at the same time, didn't have to register because they were ministers. And they could go to the same event as him, but they would go in an official capacity as a minister, Prime Minister. He didn't register. James Cleverly, leadership contender, has had to now register 2 trips. He took his wife, and his wife wasn't on the official register. Looks very embarrassing. World Cup... Women's World Cup in Australia, for instance. Labour's been caught here because it's been declaring it. The Conservatives weren't declaring, so Labour's got more of the flack. But he's made bad calls. Keir Starmer has made bad calls. It's how do you rescue yourself going forward and get a grip?
Well, I assumed a government that had been preparing for government since the moment Truss's government collapsed, it was obvious Labour going to win the election. They had a very long time to prepare a clear programme for government to tell us what they stand for, what they're going to do, and I thought they'd hit the ground running on the first 100 days. They've crashed straight into a brick wall right at the very beginning. There doesn't appear to be any plan, any strategy. What is Keir Starmer's government for? What does it stand for?
These
apart from not being the Tories.
Spoken about.
Well, there's 5 of them. Oh, no, they added a 6th because they added immigration.
Can you tell us what they are?
Well, one is something to do with immigration.
Yeah, you can't...
that was one.
Can't remember the others.
But by the way, I can't tell you what they are either, so...
No, but you...
Smash the gangs on immigration wasn't one of that...
That was one they added.
I think it might 5+1, but there are there on, like, GB Energy, they're there on the economy, they're there on the NHS.
What does it say on the economy?
Cutting violence, highest sustained growth...
In the G7.
There are there on the NHS. They are
vague and
there,
woolly.
But they're... kind of broad.
Domestic violence against
now, the Labour government... The Labour government did some good stuff early on and is doing good stuff. Right, look, if you're a tenant and no-fault evictions are going to be ended, that is good for you.
If you're a worker and you get rights from the first day that you start work, that's going to be good.
I think clean energy is, but it's being overshadowed, understandably in some ways, by having this chaos right at the heart of government in Downing Street, because that will impact on your ability to deliver on those other issues for people.
And they've chucked out Sue Gray. In my view, they've thrown her under a bus. She was the Chief of Staff. She's been blamed for everything that's gone wrong, taking gifts. The Prime Minister took the gifts. The Prime Minister took the decision to give back £6,000.
The Prime Minister made the decision to employ Sue Gray.
In the first place.
So that looks like the Prime Minister has decided his own judgment is at fault.
Yeah, in less than 100 days. Quite extraordinary. Quite extraordinary.
I thought Labour was against sort of hiring and firing like that.
But also...
she didn't get many job rights, did she?
So they've moved across a man who was already in the Number 10 machine, a man called Morgan McSweeney. His job was Director of Strategy. There doesn't appear to be a strategy. He's now Chief of Staff. What was he doing when all these problems were going on? Was he asleep?
Well, it looks like...
Or was he allowing Sue Gray to dig a great hole so he could kick her out and take over?
The story in The Times suggests that the civil service, of which Sue Gray was a senior member, are worried now about their position and they're launching a fight back. Because it says, and this is written by the policy editor of The Times and the political editor of The Times.
They're very well plugged in.
Leading government figures said Sue Gray had been made a scapegoat for wider problems in Downing Street that would not be resolved by her departure.
And there's a very interesting line in that story too. So the Cabinet Secretary, the most powerful civil servant in the land, he's retiring at the end of the year. He's not well. Simon Case. It says there's a very senior woman civil servant is withdrawing from applying for the job of Cabinet Secretary because she's seen what's happened to Sue Gray. She can't stand it. And Gray's supporters will say this has been the men ganging up on the girls.
Well, Rosie Duffield, when she resigned, the Labour MP...
She said he's got a woman problem.
She said he's got a woman problem, Kevin, has he?
Well, you'd have to ask all those female cabinet ministers, whether it's Rachel Reeves, Lou Haig,
Angela Rayner,
Jo Stevens. I suspect they would tell you not there. But at the heart of that operation,
in the machine,
there was Sue Gray's Girls Gang and there was Morgan McSweeney's Boys Brigade.
And the boys won.
The
boys won.
It didn't go exactly down those lines, but there was that.
So they won.
Well, what happens when somebody goes is they're given a huge can and everything's put in it, and everything becomes their fault. Now, she's clearly made mistakes and it wasn't working out, and you've got to resolve it. And I suspect they are in a better place now with her going than they were before, because he couldn't get
going
people
to a non-job.
It's unfair on her in many ways, but you probably have a chance to go forward, but it's going to be a very bumpy road.
There's a new book out. It's called Landslides, and it's the inside story of the 2024 election. This election is by Rachel Wearmouth and Tim Ross. And it raises new questions for the Prime Minister over his relationship with Lord Ali.
Oh, Lord Moneybags.
Because it says Lord Ali worked on designing the official grid of announcements events for the first 100 days and helped design the organisational structure for Starmer's team of special advisors inside Number 10. This raises the question again of cash for access. He was a donor. We know he's a donor.
£700,000.
Normally, people, I would have thought, Kevin, give money because they believe in a project, but they don't actually take a hand in designing the project.
I've always been very wary of, sort of philanthropists in politics who give money and don't want anything back.
Right.
I've thought this for 25, 30 years, writing about it. You can go back through history. Now, look, he might have just wanted to be at the top table and be invited to all the do's and look influential. But he also, I suppose, wants to make the world safe for himself.
Wondered what was in it. What did Lord Ali want out of it? He's got a peerage, so he had that since 1980. What did he want out? Now we know. He wanted to be helping to devise the grid, going to meetings, talking to civil...
That's the allegation.
Talking to civil servants and preparing for government. It's astonishing.
This is not the story. So the Mail says, on the front page, come clean on what Lord Ali got for his cash. I'm not sure Lord Ali got anything for his cash.
When he went to these meetings.
Actually, he's got abuse, he's got public criticism.
The big question is this. If you were thinking to yourself, who's going to work out what our communications plan is? What is our organisation of Downing Street? How are we going to drive the government agenda? I tell you, you would not choose Lord Ali. I mean, why would you choose this guy? He has never worked in government. He's not a comms media person. I mean, it is...
Because he wrote a large cheque. Because he wrote large checks.
But whether he writes a big cheque or not, you want the people in the room who've got the experience to do the job. What was he...
Why would you choose him? So they put Sue Gray in the room. That went well, didn't it?
No.
She's gone in 92 days.
The reason why...
I don't think there was any evidence that Lord Ali was... he wasn't servicing clients, making money out of it.
None of that.
There's lots of times where people who come to meetings... The issue is, if you rely upon him...
going to meetings with civil servants, with Labour preparing for government. I've never heard of it.
Look, this isn't a lobbying...
I've never heard of it.
This isn't a lobbying scandal.
No.
I could see why they went to Lord Ali, I think, mistakenly, because he's built up a huge company, £200 million in the media, and they think, right, he's run a big successful enterprise. Let's have him in. We can apply that to government.
But he never worked in government.
I know, but it's Sue Gray's political inexperience.
Exactly.
I think Keir Starmer's too. Exactly. He's not been an MP for long. He was director of public prosecution.
The issue is why you ever think Lord Ali was the right guy to run Downing Street.
Isn't the point here? Would Lord Ali have been at any of these meetings in the up to election if he hadn't written large cheques to the Labour Party? No, he would not. He would not. So it is the money he gave him the access. That's the key. That's what the scandal is here.
But this is not unique to Labour.
Hang on, we're not talking about anything else. We're talking about this new government that came in saying it would be wiser than
what is the scandal? What is the scandal here? He was not making money out of it. He was not getting jobs from it.
He bought his access.
He was not Self-aggrandising. Keir Starmer can have anybody who come to a meeting as he likes. And if it's a guy who's given money, the issue is more whether it's competent rather than...
That is the scandal.
You can't point to me any corruption here.
I'm saying to you, would he have been at those meetings... But hang on, I'm asking you this question. Would he have been at any of those meetings preparing for government with senior Labour figures and civil servants if he hadn't given large amounts of money to the Labour Party?
Well, I mean...
No.
I don't know the answer to that.
Well,
you don't know the answer to that. Honestly, we don't know the answer to that.
I think you hazard a very good guess.
Because sometimes you have people at meetings...
When you were in government, if you were preparing for it, would you have been surprised if a fat cat Labour donor with his carrier bag full of cash came along and said, I'll help you prepare for government? You'd have said, clear off.
If he knew nothing about what we were up to, then absolutely I'd have been surprised.
You'd have said, clear off.
Definitely.
They've been caught bang to
But Lord Levy, who organised Labour's donations in 1997, became Tony Blair's ambassador to the Middle East.
With civil servants preparing for government. He did not draw up Labour's grid.
I think people watching will think, normally you pay someone to do a job.
Yeah.
You don't normally give someone a job because they've paid money.
Yes, quite.
Look,
that's the claim that's being made here.
I'm not defending Lord Ali going to these meetings. What I'm saying to you, it's not corrupt. No. It's just incompetent.
It's inappropriate.
That's the scandal.
And it's inappropriate.
You've got to remember, he is a Labour Party member and a Labour peer, so he's part of the family when he's turning up. He's not come from Jupiter and just appeared. So he is part of the fabric. They would have met him many times. Doesn't make that many speeches, I know. So it is a bit different having somebody coming from the outside.
Well, those are claims made in this book, and it is causing...
By two very well-connected journalists, by the way.
Right.
Tim Ross and Rachel Wearmouth, on the left.
We are going to be speaking to a government minister after 8 o'clock, so we'll...
I wonder if he was at the meeting with Lord Ali.
She.
Or she.
Yes, sexist assumption there.
Have you got a woman problem, Andrew?
No, I don't have a woman problem. His mate Keir does.
The casual, everyday sexism there, wasn't it? We just saw it nakedly on display.
I think it was an assumption rather than misogyny. Let's talk about...
Thank you, Suzanne.
Let's talk about...
There are vastly more male ministers than there are women ministers.
Actually, I'm not sure that's true anymore. No, not with Labour.
There are more male MPs than women.
I'd have thought Labour, before the election, had more women MPs than men. But, of course, you're a Tory and the Tories don't. It's a bit different.
But the trouble is they've got one fewer female MP right now.
Well, the Tories at least have had a woman leader, unlike your lot.
Yeah, 3.
And are they about to get a woman leader?
No.
So Kemi Badenoch's not going to do it?
No.
I'm told that James Cleverly is now ahead in the betting league polls.
Always follow the money. He had a very good week last week. He's seen as a unifying candidate experience. He made the best speech, without a doubt. The day before, little notice, all the candidates did stuff on stage and he was the only one who got a standing ovation.
So the MPs are voting today.
Yes.
All Tory MPs have a vote.
Yes.
And they have to today eliminate one of the 4, which we assume will be Tom Tugendhat.
Probably Tom Tugendhat.
And then the question then, the people who supported Tom Tugendhat and the people who supported Mel Stride, who went out last time, where are they going to go?
Well,
I think tomorrow there's another vote.
There is.
And we'll end up with 2 by Thursday. And then, who's the 2 going to be?
I think it will be James Cleverly and Robert Jenrick.
So you're going to eliminate the only woman on the ticket?
Yeah, well, they've had
I'm not saying anything about that.
Well, they've had 3 women leaders, so it'd be difficult for you to say anything about it.
Is that the James not very cleverly who attacked the Labour government's deal on the Chagos Islands that he started negotiating 2 years ago?
The guy who was a great champion of, let me think, Boris Johnson and then Liz Truss.
He's been around, he's been Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, he's got experience.
Can we talk about the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, because it's become quite a big issue, actually, even within the Tory leadership contest. According to the Daily Telegraph, there is a convicted criminal, who had been deported back to Albania under a prisoner transfer agreement, who came back into Britain and has won the right to stay under the European Convention on Human Rights.
Of course he has.
He was freed 6 months into a 2.5-year jail sentence for burglary, but within months he came back into the UK in breach of a deportation order because he had a girlfriend who has leave to remain in the UK. She's from Lithuania. And they had a baby and got married. Now, under Article 8, people have a right to a family life, and this means that this convicted burglar, who was supposed to be deported back to Albania, is here. This is the kind of thing, Andrew, isn't it, that makes people feel uncomfortable?
Very, because his right to a family life supersedes the fact it's criminality. He was deported because he'd committed crimes here. He'd only done 6 months of his sentence, back to Albania, but he's come back in, he's married his girlfriend, had a baby, because he knew exactly that he would be able to stay under the ECHR, which is why people like Jenrick, who's a Tory leadership candidate, say we've got to get out of it altogether, and others say it's got to be reformed.
And the assumption here is that if we were outside the ECHR and we'd joined, I think we'd have joined Russia and Belarus as the only countries outside the European Convention of Human Rights. So we turned our back on Winston Churchill's post-war legacy. But if we'd done that, the assumption is that a British court would not have allowed this person to be with his wife and child for family reasons. Is the assumption that...
Yeah, because
why would a British court have decided his human rights were different from the European
Because generally it says we're just going to scrap the whole Human Rights Act completely.
Never any human rights?
Yeah. Well,
we're getting rid of human rights.
Well, get rid of Blair's Human Rights Act.
We're not going to have a British Human Rights Act.
We're just going to get rid of the European
But are we going to have a British one?
Well, a Bill of Rights it's going to be called.
And in the Bill of Rights, would you not have a right to family life?
If you've been deported in this country as a foreign criminal, you stay abroad.
So we'd have a rule which says anybody who's been deported would not be allowed back in.
Want to get married to your Lithuanian girlfriend, marry in Albania.
It's the child, isn't it? This is the key.
I'm not sure a British court would take a different view.
Well,
we'll see.
unless you change the law in the you change.
You'd have to
British
legislate
law.
to say that no.
Yeah, but it's the child.
It would be in the Bill of Rights.
It's the child,
which the Tories were going to do before.
It's the child being able to see the father. That's what about now.
So we would say
in the debate,
we'd change the law to say you have to expel the child and the mother.
No, we'd say
yeah.
So you shouldn't have let him back in the first place.
But the point here, Andrew, it's not about the European Convention. It's about what are human rights.
Yeah.
And if you say there is not a human right here for the father and the child and the mother to be together, that is a legitimate argument.
Yeah, it is.
It's not about the European Convention. It's about your definition of human rights. Other people would say, no, the family should be together. Because family, because normally for the Conservatives, the family unit was an important thing. Having mothers and fathers with their children, we used to think was a good thing.
It's also important for the Conservatives that if we deport a criminal for breaking the law here, they stay abroad.
Well, you've got to do it legally.
Stay abroad. He was deported legally.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
Well, he wouldn't be here
legally. He came back illegally. He came back illegally. No, he did. He came back illegally, then got his girlfriend pregnant and married her. Yes, he did.
Are you sure?
Well, that's what the Telegraph
said. Well, it says
this.
Yeah, within months he re-entered Britain in breach of the deportation order to be with his Lithuanian girlfriend.
He should have been stopped. He should have been deported immediately, and then he should have said, if you're so in love with this woman, take her to Albania and have your child in Albania. They're making a mockery of the law.
The whole debate is grotesquely distorted on the European Convention of Human Rights because it solely focuses on these isolated cases when it is being used to change the law on how...
There's quite a lot of these isolated cases, Kevin.
How women in rape cases are treated in courts in Britain, the rights of disabled people, the access of children within the NHS, the end of basically beating people in schools, public and private. So... It's not just a migrant's charter, as it will be presented. It is the rights of us all.
What if this burglar had been a rapist and he came back? He can stay too, can he? Rapist? Is that OK? Because he's breach of his human rights, because he's made his girlfriend pregnant, he's married her. It's outrageous.
That's a good question. Which right
is more important?
Yes, it is. And there's a clash in rights in society all the time.
He could be a killer. But it's the same principle.
But
where do we draw the line here?
The European Convention on Human Rights is for us all. It's not just these isolated cases which is used to attack it.
It should not be for people deliberately subverting the law of the land.
Get it changed.
Well, they will.
Get it changed.
Get a Bill of Rights and stop it.
That's interesting. So Robert Jenrick wants to get us out of the ECHR. And do we know what James Cleverly's view is as a former senior government minister?
He said we've got to look at the way it's operating. Tugendhat says... if it
doesn't rule it out.
It doesn't rule it out altogether.
Well, look, we had this discussion last week on Rwanda, where you were saying it was the European Convention of Human Rights, and of course you pointed out the UK Supreme Court. The UK Supreme Court ruled the Rwanda deportation plan was unlawful. So it's blame everything on abroad.
Pity that. The thousands who are crossing the channel every week now. That's going well, isn't it? Smash the gangs. That's going well, isn't it?
But as Andrew pointed out, Parliament then voted to legislate to say
changed it.
To change the law and to say you can override the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely true that if you're outside the European Convention, you can legislate for your definition of human rights. Now, in my definition of human rights, I would not allow somebody who's a convicted murderer to come into the country to be with their child.
Nor would I.
But I'm not saying that in every case...
Why allow a convicted burglar?
Well,
burglary is it's a menace.
Because we also care about the wife and the child.
Yeah. Well, he should have thought about that before he was burgling people's homes.
Yeah, but I know, but that is,
And he shouldn't not have come back in the country in the first place.
The child should have a father.
Yeah, well, take him to his country of Albania.
It is the child.
It's an abuse of the system.
Okay. He used to always pretend it was cats, but it never was.
All I'm saying to you is, one, these things are complicated, and two, leaving the European Convention of Human Rights does not solve the complication.
Yeah. Well,
and it puts us with Russia and Belarus and deciding that being outside the mainstream of law and order somehow makes us, you know, good countries rather than pariahs.
I have a feeling there's one other place which is outside the ECHR, and that's the Vatican City, isn't it?
Probably is, actually.
We won't go to sex abuse in the...
Oh, OK.
Goodness knows what goes on.
I didn't expect to go there.
I'm old enough to remember when leaving the European Union was the solution to all our problems.
Take back control, Kevin. I'm going to take back control now, because I want to just inform everybody, I didn't know this, that King Charles apparently is in a pen pal relationship with Melania Trump.
I'd love to see those letters.
This is according to a review of her upcoming new book in the New York Times. But the pair have been exchanging letters. She says they had an interesting conversation when they met about the King's deep-rooted commitment to environmental conservation. And also Donald Trump exchanges letters with the King. The King sent him, Donald Trump, a private letter after the attempt was made on his life while he was at a rally in Pennsylvania. Buckingham Palace has not revealed the contents of that message.
Nor will it. No. Under any circumstances.
We were talking yesterday about the fact that the price of a first-class stamp has gone up, so actually only royalty and presidents can afford stamps right now. But are we rather charmed by that Melania Trump and the King are pen pals? It's rather old-fashioned, isn't it?
It is. He's a huge letter writer, by the way. After dinner,
has he got Spidey handwriting?
Yeah, he has. And after dinner, quite often, he goes to his study and he writes by hand endless letters to people. He does it all the time.
As long as he's not still lobbying for the return of fox hunting. But no, I suppose if you've got a monarch, you can use them for a bit of soft power and try and charm people, can't you? I mean, that's why he's really doing it.
Are you endorsing this? I was about to say, I thought you'd united Andrew and I in disagreeing with Kevin, who I assumed was about to slam this.
No, look,
I think it's charming.
I'm a Democrat with a small d, so I'd like to elect the head of state. But if you've got a constitutional monarchy, it's rather like the Queen, the old Queen, who did have a certain pulling power. You deploy it.
They've got to do something, you know.
But I wonder now. I wonder if Donald Trump was there to leak some of those letters, because that would do him. It would look very good for him in the American election.
Yeah.
That would be the end of the correspondence with the King.
But yes. We are 1 month away, by the way, from the American election. We saw an absolutely shocking report in the news about the fact that immigration and the consequences of that desperate rush to get into America is so devastating. What's going to happen? Who do you put your money on this morning?
It's what you want, isn't it? Can influence.
I still think probably Trump, because it's that extraordinary electoral machine. It's the key states. What do they call it? The electoral...
the 7, like Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Clinton won more votes than Trump last in 2016, but he had the key states.
Distribution. I don't know, I just think she'll sneak it. But it's what I want, so I know my judgment could be swayed. And if
she sneaks it, what does Donald Trump do then?
He won't accept the result. Well, he hasn't accepted the last one, and that's why he is... That alone is why he is unfit to be president.
And I just want to ask you one question before we go, and that is, how many novels can you read in a week? Because an Oxford University professor of English claims that state school students struggle to read long novels and says... I have been teaching in British and American universities for 40 years. When I began in Cambridge, you could say to students, this week it's Dickens, please read Great Expectations, David Copperfield and Bleak House. Now, instead of 3 novels in a week, many students will struggle to get through 1 novel in 3 weeks.
I read 3 in 1 week.
Who reads 3 novels in a week?
No one.
It must be what?
They're not reading them, are they?
No. 1,500 pages.
And by the way, when I was at my school, I read Lord of the Rings, one of the longest books ever.
And how long did it take you?
It took a lot longer than a week.
Yes,
because there are 3 versions.
I think it's a little unfair on state-educated children. I don't know many private-educated children who
I think he's a bit of a snob.
Snob? Yeah, we're putting him in the snob
I'm afraid
bracket.
so.
Yeah, right, that's it.
Kevin and I have agreed.
Well, no.
Shock horror. No, that's
we both hate snobs.
That is sneering.
We both suffered snobbery. We both
Do you
hate
still
snobs.
read books, by the way?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
I'm just reading Robert Harris's new book.
Yeah.
On Ed Balls' recommendation.
Yeah. I'd got it already, actually, but it is really interesting.
He also colours them in. He gets them, and he likes his dot to dots. You know?
Move over, Lord Ali. Robert Harris is getting some good plugs from Good Morning Britain.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, we better get him in.
What a great novel.
Kevin, Andrew,
his books are all good.
Thank you very much indeed.